Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Son of a Witch Podcast with your host Mike D. That is me. I come to you each week and possibly soon to be more than once a week to bring you some of the witchiest, spookiest, most interesting topics that I can possibly think of, and I hope that I do my best. So this week, I'm going to go over some very quick announcements. Last week you heard me talk about a Patreon. Well, fuck Patreon. I don't like that. I don't like the model. I don't like the way it's set up, and I'm not going to do it. It seems way too official. They charge too many fees, and I'm just not a fan. I'm a much more laid-back kind of person, so I did find something called Buy Me a Coffee, and that is way more chill. Basically, just buy me a coffee, 1, 2, or 3, and I think coffees are priced at $4 each, or you can do the Son of a Witch monthly membership, which gives you bonus content such as the comic episode, the outtakes talking about comics with Shane and I that I just dropped as an example. Also different videos and things that I'm going to be doing, behind the scenes videos. You're going to get hints at upcoming episodes. You're going to get opportunities to be in episodes, shout outs on the show. There will be a bi-weekly newsletter. There's also going to be a Discord server that is exclusively for Son of a Witch members, and that's $10 a month. So you can choose to pay whatever you want. You can choose to be a member. You can not do either, and that's cool too. But it is anonymous as well. You don't have to sign up for anything. It's just way more chill. Anyway, so with that out of the way, you'll see that if you go to the website. I've also got a link tree set up, and that has all of the access to everything Son of a Witch on the intrawebs for your listening and viewing pleasure. So basically, if you were to go to the Instagram page right now, that is the link in the bio. It's a link tree link. It will take you there, and from there you can click at the very top to listen on whatever platform you're on. If you're on Apple, it's going to take you to Apple. If you're on Android, it's going to most likely take you to Google. If you're on a desktop or a PC, it's going to probably take you to Spotify. So you can also get the link to all the different social medias: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's got the website on there. It's got the Buy Me a Coffee link on there. It's got the YouTube channel on there, which I'm doing more with now as well. So I'm going to talk about that as also. I have been posting audiogram or audio wave files, basically with just like a waveform behind it on YouTube. Apparently there are some people that just prefer to listen through that method, and that's fine by me. It's not very hard to do. So I'm kind of going through my back catalog now and trying to get them caught up. I've got the 2 or 3 most recent episodes on YouTube currently. I also have the unboxing of the Edgar Allan Poe Tarot. I'm going to be doing a review of that, and I'm also going to be giving some podcasting tips and things like that as well. I'm going to be doing more video stuff. So there's going to be that also. So keep that in mind. At the end of the month, keep in mind we have a full moon coming up on November the 30th, and you also have the release of the November issue of Witch Magazine, which yours truly has an article in. So I am going to keep talking about that between now and then, because not only is it a great magazine and a great publication, but they also do a podcast. They've been trying to get the word out about the craft and the community. I want to kind of promote that now, especially that I'm working with them. So that's going to be something that you're going to hear more about also. Other than that, that's really about it. There hasn't been a whole lot going on. I have been back at work, which my day job is kind of taking up a little bit more of my time, but that's fine also. Everything with the new podcast host is going excellent. I have a crossover episode that I'm doing with So Clean podcast at the end of this month, and I also at the beginning of next month on December the 6th at 4 p.m. have the live version of the show that I am doing for a virtual podcast convention. So lots of exciting things coming up. I'm also going to be doing some microcasts, and that's basically going to be a daily podcast, and they're going to range between 5 to 10 minutes long, normally somewhere in between the two of those, and those are basically just going to be daily tips, things that you can do to add to your witchy day of life, whether you're out of the broom closet or in, and also just some things that are going on maybe with the lunar cycle, some upcoming Sabbats, things of that nature, just things that you can listen to while you're brushing your teeth, taking a shower, walking the dog, doing whatever it is you do in a very short amount of time time, just to give you some motivation and inspiration throughout your day. So other than that, that's pretty much it. I'm going to go ahead and wrap the introduction up and take a quick pause, and I will be right back to talk about a magical herb of the week. I'm also going to give you a magical recipe, and then pretty soon we will be into our topic of this week, pendulums, one of my favorite things. So I'll be right back with the magical herb of the week. All right, and welcome back to Son of a Witch Podcast. Right about now, we are going to get into our magical herb of the week. You will notice that I'm kind of ramping up a little more. Yule is probably my favorite time of the year. Definitely my favorite Sabbath. My birthday is in December. I just love the holiday season, so I am including a lot of magical herbs, which tend to be magical spices, and that's what this one is. Nutmeg. Nutmeg. We know the smell of nutmeg. Most everybody does, especially around the holidays. It's in a lot of different recipes and drinks and things like that. But nutmeg, as you may or may not know, has some magical properties as well. And I'm going to go over a little bit of that. First of all, the technical stuff. Nutmeg, Myristica fragrans, bulk names Sadhika, Wopela, and Bequiba Aku. Gender, masculine. Planet, Jupiter. Element, fire. Powers, luck, money, health, and fidelity. Magical uses. Nutmegs have long been carried as good luck charms, strung with star anise, another magical herb, or spice rather, that we just went over recently on the show. Strung with star anise and tonka beans for a potent herbal necklace. Specifically, nutmegs are carried to ward off rheumatism, cold sores, neuralgia, boils, and styes. A nutmeg hung from a string around a baby's neck is supposed to aid in its teething. Nutmeg is included in many money and prosperity mixtures, and ground is sprinkled onto green candles for this purpose as well. To ensure your lover's fidelity, you can cut a nutmeg into exactly 4 pieces, bury one part in the earth, throw one off of a cliff into the air, burn the third part, and boil the last in water. Drink a sip of the water and take this last piece of nutmeg with you everywhere. Sleep with it under your pillow at night, and no one will tempt your mate. So that's just some old folklore associated with nutmeg. If you want to try that out and you feel like it works, definitely let me know. I would be interested to hear about it. I've also got a little bit more information, I guess, in addition to what we just went over. So we've talked about the different uses it can be used for, what it's associated with, things like that. But apparently, according to an old method by European witches, that it could also cure warts. You could give them nutmeg to keep in their pocket. They would take it out occasionally to nibble on it. Over time, both the nutmeg and a wart should get smaller and smaller. Now, that tends to happen over time anyway, but we'll see. And then, like we mentioned, you can increase your well-being or prosperity by spreading a pinch of crushed nutmeg on a green candle, or anointing it with oil and rolling it in crushed nutmeg, and then light it when there is a crescent moon and it's in the astrological sign of Taurus, just to give it a little extra. You can apparently spread some nutmeg on a lottery ticket. Loading it for a day and one night will increase chances of winning. So loading it basically means just let it sit there for a day and a night. So basically an entire 24 hours. And that should increase your chances of winning according to that. So I'm going to give you a few different recipes that you can try with this. So basically for good luck, mainly if you're like searching for a job or something like that, you could use 3 pieces of nutmeg, tablespoon of vinegar, tablespoon of cod liver oil, and 6 tablespoons of honey with a liter of water. Add all the ingredients in the water and boil it. Boil for about 20 minutes on low heat, and then bathe with that preparation before going on an important appointment like a job interview or something of that nature. You want to attract prosperity, say to your home. You could use grated nutmeg and a good amount of ginger and place that inside of an empty empty beer bottle. You could also make like a dip bath before leaving home, to which you could add a little bit of grated nutmeg also. And then going back to the whole lottery thing, if you're trying to win the lottery, you can grate a whole nutmeg, store it in a yellow bag, and carry it with you though every time you place a bet or buy a lottery ticket. If you're playing a lottery, you must write down the number on a piece of paper and place it inside the same bag, and it's best if you don't separate from the bag when you sleep. So you would basically want to keep that bag on you at all times. So there's that. And then one last thing, just wanted to kind of throw out there with you, and this is a clairvoyance brew. Now this is out of Scott Cunningham's complete book of incense, oils, and brews, one of my go-to resources. And basically this one is going to help you with your clairvoyance a bit. So you're going to use 3-part rose petals, 1 part cinnamon, 1 part nutmeg, 1 part bay, 1 part mugwort. And you're going to place that in a teapot. You're going to fill that with boiling water. Let it steep covered for about 3 or 4 minutes. Remove the cover, sniff the steam. Be careful though, not to burn your nose. And then for a few moments, just kind of breathe that in. Visualize the mystic scent opening your psychic awareness, and then lie down and proselytize, or try some astral travel or meditation, things like that. If you wish, you can also drink a bit of the brew also, and let the steam continue to rise as you stretch out your psychic awareness. So just a little bit of almost a tea or a brew that you can use that incorporates the magical spice of the week, nutmeg, and help your clairvoyance a little bit. So there are some recipes and things that you can try with our magical spice nutmeg. So I'm going to take a quick pause, and I will be right back with your lunar weekly forecast. Okay, and welcome back to Son of a Witch Podcast. We are now at the portion of the show where we give you your lunar weekly forecast. Magic can work better than at other times, depending on when you're doing it, how you're doing it, the materials you're doing it with, etc. So basically, in order to conduct magical rituals or spells or divination or anything like that, for them to be the most successful, you want to correlate those with lunar rhythms and moon phases and things of that nature. The moon's always been and kind of remains the master of magic and or the source of magic, in my opinion, and it's not by accident. It's subject to the flow and change of astral energies, which witches and people that work with magic directly deal with. So if your experiments or spells or workings in magic are going to become more productive if you conduct them at the most suitable time of the lunar cycle or phases, etc., then why not do that, correct? So that's exactly what we're doing. Now, on last week's show, I gave you your forecast through Thursday the 19th, so we're going to pick up with Friday the 20th, the day that this should be coming out, unless I decide and get it done early to drop it sooner. So, on Friday the 20th, that is also known as Native American Heritage Day. We also have the waxing moon. Moon phases in its first quarter. The color is going to be rose, the moon sign, Aquarius, and the best incense on this day, cypress. On Saturday, also known as National Adoption Day, we have the waxing moon. Second quarter of the moon starts at 11:45 p.m. Color, brown. Moon sign, Aquarius. The moon enters Pisces around 11:06 p.m. on this day. The sun enters Sagittarius around 3:40 p.m. on this day. And the incense is rue. So if you move on to Sunday, the 22nd, that is also known as Saint Cecilia's Day. We have the waxing moon. We have the second quarter of the moon still. The color will be orange. Moon sign, Pisces, and the incense, frankincense. Monday the 23rd. St. Clement's Day. We still have the waxing moon. Moon phase is still in its second quarter. The color is lavender. The moon sign is Pisces, and the incense is rosemary. Tuesday the 24th, also known as Evolution Day. The waxing moon still. Second quarter still, color scarlet, moon sign Pisces. The moon will enter Aries around 10:05 a.m. on this day, and the incense is geranium. Wednesday the 25th, known as Feast of St. Catherine of Alexandria. That is the waxing moon, still in the second quarter, color white, moon sign Aries, incense bay laurel. And for Thursday the 26th, also Thanksgiving Day in the US, that is the waxing moon. Moon phase is in its second quarter. The color is green. The moon sign is Aries. Moon enters Taurus around 10:43 p.m. And the incense, what do you think it is? Nutmeg. So that is your lunar weekly forecast. Give you a little bit of assistance and guidance in getting your magical workings all ready to go. You can use nutmeg as we discussed, and I'm going to be putting some more information about that on the website and on the Instagram page at Son of a Witch Pod. Website is www.sonofawitchpod.com. You can check that out and get ready if you're going to be celebrating Thanksgiving Day here in the US with some spices to spice up your holiday dinner. We have star anise that we talked about recently, nutmeg. Those can easily be incorporated into most Thanksgiving dishes, or at least a lot of them, rather. So that is your lunar weekly forecast. I'm going to take a short pause, and then we will be right back with our topic, pendulums and the magic and divination that can be done with them. And we are back to our topic of the week. You have heard me speak on it numerous times before on the show. You have possibly even seen me do a virtual reading. I know some listeners have had those done by me, and I do readings for people in my local area as well for my clients. That is pendulums. Pendulums are an amazing device, also known as dowsing. Dowsing, if you're familiar, you may have seen someone using, sometimes they use wooden sticks, but a lot of times they're metal rods, and they'll walk around, and when these rods cross one another, they indicate a water spot. I've seen my grandfather do it many years ago, never knew at time what it was called. He had mentioned dowsing, but what I mean by that is that I never really knew that and what I would one day learn as a form of divination would be kind of hand in hand, but they are. So pendulum technically is more or less just any weight hung from a fixed point, typically a string or a chain when you're using it for divination, things like that, allowing it to swing freely back and forth. They've been used as ancient divination tools for a long time, many, many years, and the idea behind it is that it can bring subconscious energy into conscious awareness. More or less, it can help you kind of find out, similar in a way to tarot, using your higher self as a way of getting guidance or support, finding out things. You can even locate lost items, but we'll get into that soon. Basically, that there's energy in everything. There's energy in us. There's energy running down our arm into the chain or the string, into the pendulum device, which can be, a lot of times when you see them in stores, they're stones or crystals, but you can put a ring on a piece of a string and use it as a pendulum. It will still work. People make their own pendulums from acorns or things that they find in nature. All of that can work and work just as well. Now, I do suggest to a lot of people using a quartz crystal on the end of a chain as a pendulum when they first get started. You can find those online. I, as always, will tell you to check that your local store or shop doesn't have it first, because, I always encourage to shop local. But I do say quartz because they're good for picking up messages. Quartz crystals are strong amplifiers of energy, and the only thing with quartz, though, is that you will want to clear it and clean it often, because quartz does pick up a lot of energy as well. Now, when you're using it to douse for solutions to health issues, to clear chakras, things like that, which I do, and they work very well for that. If you're using it for something like that, a wooden pendulum can sometimes be more appropriate. They're, like I said, quite easy to make yourself. You can even make one, like if you know that you're not going to be able to buy one anytime soon, or if you would just prefer to make something, you will have a stronger connection with that. So you can make a pendulum as well. But that's kind of just some basic background on it. Now, speaking about healing, because you can use pendulums, I can use them. I'll have someone lie down, typically my fiance, but I'll have someone lie down and I can put the pendulum over a particular chakra, and you kind of go in a certain order, and basically it will start spinning in a circle clockwise motion if there is some energy that needs to be unblocked or kind of moved forward. And you can clear chakras that way. If there is any energy, you can clear that energy and then move on to the next chakra. And it requires a little bit of background as to where the chakras are and what they affect and things like that, but that's easily found online or in just about any book at your metaphysical shop or local witch shop, things like that. But they can be used for that. And a lot of people, as I commented, a wooden pendulum may be best for that, believe that those give you the greatest clarity, because crystals and stones and metals, as I said with the quartz, can absorb energy, which can cloud or influence information. That's why if you're using stones or crystals, you do again want to clear and cleanse those pretty often. But basically what you're doing when you're using a pendulum is you're communicating with your higher self. You're kind of accessing divine guidance, or from the higher self, or from spirit, or from the universe, however you refer to it. To give you an idea, one of the reasons you might want to use a pendulum is that every time you develop another gift that you can use to communicate with spirit or universe or deities or the higher self, things like that, your overall vibration gets higher. So as this happens, the overall level of gifts that you have become higher, and then they're therefore easier to use. So it's also a tool that you can utilize to aid you in making decisions about healing and things like that. Pendulums kind of promote healing by seeking out invisible energies. Like I said, there's energies in everything, and it connects to people and their higher energy spiritually, and it can help locate any blocks in energy, particularly for me when I'm looking for blocks in chakras. So they can also be used as a form of reflection, asking questions to receive guidance, awareness, and understanding with your healing and physical self. And by balancing the chakras, which is also, as I said, possible with pendulums, pendulums can do that because they tend to pick up on subtle vibrations that can help clear the body and balance the mind, body, and spirit when everything is in balance and in tune. So it can actually, believe it or not, be used to help relieve forms of pain, and that applies to emotional or physical pain. So to that end, it's basically important when you're using a crystal pendulum to choose a method of cleansing or clearing to use it on that prior to the divination session, and I actually recommend doing it afterwards as well. So basically, to cleanse the pendulum, you can do that by holding it under running cold tap water. If you're somewhere where the winters aren't too harsh and the rivers don't or streams don't freeze over, you can do that in a river or stream, and I actually prefer that method when possible because it's natural cleansing and it picks up the energies of nature as well, so it helps do that. But you can just do it under running cold tap water. If your crystal or stone or metal or whatever you're using is okay to be around salt and water, you can soak it in sea salt water, or you can just bury it in some sea salt. But you do want to check if you're using a pendulum that you bought or something like that to make sure that it's not going to affect it negatively, because salt and sometimes water can affect stones and crystals and metals in certain ways, and you don't want it to mess anything up. So be sure to look before you use that method. But if you can't do it in a running stream or river, and you don't want to do it under running cold tap water, you can soak it in sea salt, and that will help do so as well. So you basically want to set a mental intention when you're doing this, and whatever method that you choose, to free it of possible picked up energies. And I'll even kind of imagine or visualize negative energy like gray or black kind of running out of it, almost as if you were rinsing out a dirty cloth or something like that. That's my preferred way, but I do a lot of visualization. So after cleansing it, You can carry it around with you, see how it feels, hold it in both palms, kind of connect with the pendulum itself, particularly if it's stone or crystal, and kind of just get it in tune with your own personal vibrations and higher self. Now, choosing a pendulum, that's really a very personal choice. Like I say, you can make a pendulum that will work just as good as a store-bought one, and sometimes, say you're using an antique ring that belonged to an ancestor or something like that, maybe a pocket watch, whatever, you could have it work a little bit better just because of the connection that you have. But it's important to kind of allow the pendulum to choose you. Typically, not typically, but every pendulum I've ever purchased almost called to me. Like, I noticed it when it was not in a very obvious place. It caught my eye. I was drawn to it. And typically when I buy a pendulum or look at them, I don't just grab the one that I think is shiniest or prettiest or looks the coolest. I will touch each of them and kind of feel their energy. Sometimes, and most of the time that I do this, I'm in a metaphysical store, so people don't really think that much of it. But if I were in a normal store, they'd think I was nuts, because I will oftentimes hold the stone or the crystal or whatever the pendulum is on the end of it to my third eye, because that's how I choose personally my own crystals. If it vibrates and I can feel that in my third eye, and sometimes even physically, then I kind of know that there is a connection there and that I'm drawn to that particular stone or crystal. So that's how I choose mine. But it is a very personal thing. You don't want to just go out and pick, your favorite stone, because you may get that stone, and even though you like the way it looks, it may not work as well for you. You just may not have that connection, much like tarot and things like that. So touching it, sometimes you can feel a temperature change. If it's, the one for you, like I said, a subtle vibration, sometimes it just feels right. So it's a very personal process. There's really no surefire way to kind of go over that. But once you do have one, I can tell you how to use them. So basically, when you're using a pendulum, and you'll see a lot of times people will have mats now, like a piece of cloth that has a pendulum chart on it. Many times it's much like a Ouija board. It has yes on the top and bottom, no on the left and right. Occasionally it might have maybe in between each of those, or it could have rephrase the question in between some of those. Some pendulum charts will have numbers, letters, some have zodiac signs, moon phases. Some can get very intricate and complicated, but they work basically the same. And so first you want to kind of understand the directional swings and then define those directional swings. And what I mean by that, when you're holding a pendulum, you typically want to hold it between your thumb and forefinger, or that's what I do. And you don't want to pinch it super grip vice-like tight. You just want to kind of hold it enough to where it's not going to slide or slip, but where you're not like squeezing it as well. Let a little bit drape over. I normally hold it about, 3 or 4 inches down from the top of the chain. And then you'll want to hover that about an inch or a little under an inch above either the chart or the table or whatever it is you're using. You can even use your palm. And if you're using a chart, you'll want it to you want to ask it, where is yes? And if you hold your elbow on the table and hold your right hand if you're right-handed, left if you're left-handed, your dominant hand basically, and hold this pendulum the way I just described it above the table and ask this question, you'll notice it moving without your hand moving. Now you're going to see little slight twitches and things like that because maybe your arm's not used to being in that position. That's not what I'm talking about. You will know yourself, and be honest with yourself. You will know yourself if you're moving your hand in such a way that would influence the pendulum swinging. But you will notice without doing that it will start to move. Typically, if you're on a chart or something like that, it's going to move to yes when you say show me yes. It's going to move to no when you say show me no, and so on and so forth for each section of the chart. Now, if you're not using a chart, you can do the same thing. Okay, show me yes. And you'll want to do that typically when you get or make a pendulum for the first time anyway. You want to kind of know, because I will say that the majority of mine and the majority of people that I talk to swing, if I'm holding it right in front of me, forward and backward for yes, left and right for no, and then in between those two for maybe or rephrase, and then it'll start spinning in circles, typically clockwise clockwise if there is energy that needs to be cleared. So I'll typically start mine out by saying, is there any energy that needs to be cleared in the area by myself or anyone that, if I'm doing it for a client, for them, etc. I'll let it do its thing. If there is, it'll spin in circles and then it'll eventually start slowing down and stop. At that point, once you've kind of defined what is yes and no and everything else, if you're not using a chart, if you are using a chart, that it's going to the right areas. And for instance, if you say show me yes and it shows you no, you'll want to say no, that is no. Please show me yes, and kind of almost tune it more or less like an instrument. But for the most part, it normally kind of gets it right on the first try. So once you've kind of figured that out, like I say, vertical typically in most scenarios indicates, for me anyway, like up and down as yes, and horizontally back and forth for no, and circular a lot of times will mean rephrase or that there may be energy that needs to be cleared. But it's going to be different for each person. So you always want to check when you first get one and start using it. So the way that you want to ask questions, and this is the way I kind of prep everyone that I do readings for, it's similar if you want to think of it. Most people know what a spirit board or a Ouija board is. You can ask it yes, no questions, and it can spell out things for you. You can do that with a pendulum with the spelling out things. It takes a while. Basically, you would hold it over the letters and it would start moving towards the one that it needs, and you would just kind of adjust it until it's right above the one and not really moving or just kind of twitching or vibrating. That's your letter. Then you'll say, show me the next letter, and so on and so forth. It can be very tedious and it's very time consuming. So when I do readings, for instance, I try to tell people how to phrase questions in a yes or no way. Even if it's a detailed question, like an example I give my clients is, if you want to vacation in either New Orleans, Louisiana, or San Francisco, California, you can still ask that. You wouldn't ask, should I vacation in New Orleans or San Francisco? But you could ask it, would I have more fun and enjoy myself better in New Orleans? If it says yes, you can even follow that up with, would I also have fun? There's ways to phrase it so you can still get around the yes or no aspect, but typically it is more general like that. For example, you wouldn't be able to say, will my pregnant friend have a boy or a girl? Now you could say, is it more likely that my pregnant friend will have a boy? And go like that. So you want to kind of just know going into it what you can ask and what you can't, and kind of set your intentions and expectations, and they will always typically with a pendulum be blown away, because I'm telling you that the same thing I tell people all the time is this. Tarot is something that you really have to practice and work with and learn, especially if you don't want to have to flip back and forth through a book each time you do a reading. Tarot takes time and memorization and kind of gaining intuition and things like that from the cards. Runes, again, is a method that takes a lot of learning. You can study runes for a very long time and still continue to study runes. Pendulums are a form of divination that pretty much will almost instantly start working for you the first time that you try it. It works off of your energies. I do believe, and some others do as well, that I can use it almost the same way you would a seance or a Ouija board to contact spirits as well. I don't do that a lot. Most of the time it's just working with the universe, deities, my higher self, all kind of one big composite to kind of get the answers through that. But it works off of those energies and things of that nature. So as I said, when you're doing this, you can use what they call charts. You can buy books in stores that have flip charts. I have some of those. I make pendulum charts, or I call them pendulum mats / wraps, which is basically, it's a chart that you can do your readings with, and then you put your pendulum in, fold it up a certain way, tie it, and take it with you. And it kind of protects your pendulum from negative energies, from getting lost or messed up. up, but it's also a convenient reading mat that you can use when you get where you're going. So those are also cool. You can go online and print out on a piece of paper a pendulum chart if you want to have something to start working with right away. But you will want to, before starting, understand that you're going to accept information that you feel intuitively is correct and for your higher good. You'll want to keep a notebook handy so you can write down any questions in the pendulum's response, almost like a pendulum journal. And you need to understand that, again, let me reiterate this, that each pendulum, even for the same person, may have a different response. And so that's why you always want to get those directional swings and what the answers are at the start, so you kind of know for that particular pendulum how it's going to react. Tarot decks for most people are the same way. They may have more than one tarot deck, but each tarot deck I know I have a tarot deck that kind of gives me gentle but good advice. I have another tarot deck that gives me good advice but does it in a, hey, what the fuck is your problem? We've already been over this type approach. So pendulums can be the same way. So you want to kind of determine that. And again, make sure that I recommend clearing and cleansing your pendulums, particularly stones and crystals, before and after each time you use them. You don't have to, but crystals and quartz particularly, I would recommend it. So also, when you first get a pendulum at the store, I do want to say this too, it may not react as strongly as you'd like it or expect it to. And I see that happen a lot. And I've had people even go, okay, I think mine's broken. It's not broken. It works. Again, you can put a ring on a string and it'll work. So it's not broken, but just like crystals, you might have to spend a little more time with it so that your energies and the energies of that particular stone or crystal connect. So you may need to cleanse it. You may need to redo this again, kind of sit with it, hold it between both your palms, meditate with it, and just almost kind of feel the energy coming from the stone or crystal and the energy of your body kind of connecting. You can cleanse them, like I said, with the running water, whether it be tap water, whether it be river, stream. You can put it under a mound of sea salt. If you would like, you can kind of soak it for an hour or two in some sea salt water if you have checked and made sure that it's not going to do any damage. And you can use the elements too, fire, air, earth, and water, to help cleanse and keep it free of any negativity and things like that. So if you wanted to use the element of fire, you could put your pendulum in a pyramid and expose it to the sun for a few hours, and that'll energize it with higher vibrations. If you wanted to do it with earth, you could bury your pendulum in soil or, again, the sea salt, and let it sit there for a while, and that can absorb and transmute any negative energy in the stone or crystal. You can put your pendulum in a bowl of crystal energized water, visualize it being cleansed and love flowing into it, replacing any negativity, things of that nature. And if you wanted to use air, you could put your pendulum over burning frankincense, or use sage or ethically harvested Palo Santo to cleanse it. So that's pretty much it. I mean, when you're starting out, if you're picking one up from a store, I would recommend a medium weight pendulum. If it's too light, it might be a little too sensitive for you, and if it's too heavy, it might react kind of slowly or get your arm tired from not being used to that position. So there are different types. There's Sephoraton, and that style has a high sensitivity to vibrations. It doesn't really allow for as much of a margin of error. It's good for questions about health, love, money, or to magnetize objects. You could get a triangular shaped pendulum, and that style is said to pick up on the vibration of numbers, so it could be good if you're interested in numerology. They have chambered pendulums. Those are pretty cool. They have a hollow hole in them so you could put things in. So let's say if you were asking questions for a specific person, you could add a strand of their hair for more accurate answers, obviously with their permission. If you were trying to seek out water on a piece of property, you could add a couple of drops of water into that chamber and then use it to seek that out. So there's another type called Isis style, and that's good to use for research on electromagnetic fields or in astrology charts and things of that nature. There are chakras chakra pendulums, and those have the different colors of the chakra in the order that they're supposed to be. And those are good for balancing and healing chakras. I use one of those when I'm unblocking chakras. And you can buy specific stones for that particular thing to clear chakras and things of that nature, such as like a lapis pendulum for throat chakra healing. You can buy specific ones for specific things. And then there's spiral style, which is said to be good for questions about your life. So it really just depends. Again, I just go by more the method of what feels right, what I'm drawn to. If it happens to have one of those other styles, I had one time and I was like, oh man, this is so cool, and had no clue that it was hollowed out in the middle, like one of the chamber ones. So I kind of go with that method, but do what works best for you. I will say again, when you're using it, especially when you're starting out, don't try to make it still or to move it. Just kind of watch it. Let the natural rhythm it takes, because it's going to be different for everybody, just kind of take over. I typically, when I pick one up, it'll start swinging clockwise until I provide a question or a direction for it. And usually that's because I start mine out asking if there's any energy that needs to be cleared. And that is the motion that mine goes in for doing so. It may stay still. It may swing counterclockwise. It may go back and forth. There's really no right or wrong. It's just the way your energy and the energy of that pendulum connect and kind of mesh together. Now, if you're meditating with it and your pendulum remains still, can kind of choose an affirmation you'd like to focus on. Close your eyes and visualize it. So let's say, I am going to be prosperous. Energy of that affirmation should begin to move the pendulum to and fro and things like that. And then you can start focusing on it or your intentions. So basically, once your pendulum moves, whether it's when you first start using it or whether you have to kind of visualize what your intentions for meditating in that particular moment are going to be, and while you're focusing on the pendulum, watch it with your eyes. Once it starts moving, you're going to imagine the movement of it is absorbing the energy of what you're meditating and focusing on or your desire, and then directing it out into the universe. So to give another example, if your intention or affirmation is something like peaceful, open communication with loved ones, try to visualize the people you specifically struggle communicating with. Picture them having a good conversation with you, their face is joyful, everybody's laughing and easygoing. Imagine the feeling of a warm, open love that you give and receive with people, and then focus on that as you're meditating with your pendulum. Now, what another use that I use, and this kind of normally the reaction I get when I tell people this is there's no way, but it actually does work, and I will use my pendulum to find lost items quite often. I lose my cell phone, I lose my vape, I lose my keys, I lose everything on a regular basis. I'm convinced that I have fairies that just like to be playful and hide things, because a lot of the things are found later on in places that I'm fairly certain that I looked in 2 or 3 times. But basically, like once to prove it to someone, I said, go in there and hide my keys. And so I went into the room and I said, show me where my car keys are. Now this is after I did, the clearing and all that. And it started moving a little towards the right. So I kind of walked in that direction, almost like a game of hot or cold. Show me where my car keys are. And then it started moving a little up and towards the top. So then I moved in that direction. And you're basically, like I said, it's hot or cold. You're working with it like that until you get to a point where now if you're in a huge football stadium sized room, it may take a while. But for a bedroom, a kitchen, a living room, normally it won't take long to kind of get to the point where you ask that question and the pendulum's not moving much at all. At that point, you could start narrowing it down. So for me, I got near my nightstand and I said, is my pendulum in the drawer? It said no. I said, is my pendulum beside the bed and the nightstand? It said no. Come to find out, after a few more questions, is my pendulum. I said pendulum and I meant car keys. So basically what had happened was the person had dropped the car keys behind the nightstand and the wall, which is a place that normally there's not enough room for things to fall behind, so I wouldn't have thought to look there, but that's where they were. And I've had issues with my phone, with other little things of my own, where if I'm in a hurry and I don't really have time, or my search is proving fruitless and I can't find what I need, then I'll start using the pendulum. And I don't know of a time, I think there was one time where it didn't work completely the right way, but it got close enough that, it could have been just a margin of error. But basically, it just, there's so many different things you can use it with. You can, like I say, use it almost as a spirit board, a form of divination. You can use it to contact ancestors. You can use it to find lost items. You can use it to heal emotional and physical pain. You can use it to do magical meditation and manifestation. You can use it to find things that have gone missing in your home. You can use it to find water. I mean, there are just countless ways, and if I went into every single one, this particular topic would go way too long. But if you do have any questions, because that is pretty much what I've got. I mean, it just boils down to making sure that it feels right and comfortable to you. Like I say, it's going to be different for every person. My process that works for me and the things I'm saying may not work for you. If you need to tweak it a little bit, if you find that this works better than this, that's part of the craft. It is finding what works for you and brings you happiness and joy and positivity. So the point is, I just want to give everyone somewhere to start, a firm place to kind of plant your feet and say, Mike, this is fucking weird, but I think I can do it, because it's such a beautiful experience, truly, when you finally discover that it works for you. It's one of those, holy shit, type moments, but at the same time, like, this is badass type moments. So it's a really fun experience, but it's important to remember that it all comes down to you, your power, your will, the courage to believe, and all of the inner magic that you haven't really used in such a long time, and opening that back up, much like psychic abilities and things of that nature. So that is the topic of the week: pendulums and the magic and divination that can be done with them. I challenge you to, if you have one that you've just not used, to start working with it. If you don't have one and you have the ability to buy one, to do so. If you do not, or you have some items like, say, a lucky acorn, first one of the season, or something like that, or a ring that belonged to your grandmother, or something that has a lot of meaning, I challenge you to make one and start trying it out. You don't, again, have to go out and buy anything. You can find something at home right now to wait on the end of a string, and even if you can't print out a pendulum chart, you can draw one. It's such an easy method to use, and it's so much fun. I actually have a ring on the end of a silver chain that I wear around my neck all the time, and when I don't have my pendulum that actually I have more than one. I have a labradorite pendulum, which is my favorite and most efficient one, that gives me the clearest answers, in my opinion. And it's also one of my favorite stones, and it's very pretty as well. So that's one that I was just drawn to from across a store, inside of a locked glass cabinet at the very back corner of said locked glass cabinet. So just to give you an idea, that's how it kind of works. But yeah, try it out. Let me know what works for you. Let me know what doesn't work for you. If you have any questions, if you want to know if there's something you want to know if it works for that I didn't cover, send me a message, email me. There's a number on the website now, www.sonofawitchpod.com. That is a Google Voice number if you want to call and leave me a voicemail, or if I'm available, I may answer it right there on the spot. So that's not my personal number, but that is a number that I want all the listeners to have if they ever need to try and reach out. Also, keep in mind, at Son of a Witch Pod on Instagram is where you'll find daily postings, sometimes related to the upcoming show, sometimes related to a previous show, sometimes just fun and interesting things or memes that I think might brighten someone's day. We've also, on the Instagram page, the link in the bio is a Linktree link. I love saying that. And that will take you to a page that has all of the links associated with Son of a Witch in one place. There is one button that you can click that will take you to the preferred podcasting platform, whether you use Apple, Android, or PC. There is a button for each of the social media sites: Instagram, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. There's a button for the website, www.sonofawitchpod.com. There is a button for the YouTube channel, which I, as I mentioned in the beginning, am starting to do more videos, reviews, podcasting tips, things, spell work that I'm doing, things like that. That's also going to be part of the bonus content that is included if you become a Son of a Witch member. And you can do that by going to the Buy Me a Coffee button on the Linktree site. So pretty much everything I've got. If you have any questions in the coming week, don't hesitate to ask. If you've got any ideas or topics you want me to discuss that you've been curious about, definitely message me on Instagram, send me an email, give me a phone call, whatever. Get in touch and I will talk about doing that. Also, don't forget that the magazine article in Witch Magazine is coming out later this month, so keep that on your calendars. And until next time, because it will be Black Friday when you hear my lovely voice again, I hope that if you do celebrate Thanksgiving, you have a wonderful time with loved ones. If you do not, I hope that your coming week is filled with all sorts of blessings from the universe, spirit, your deities, whatever you refer to it as. Thank you for listening to me again, and I hope that I talk to you very, very soon.